Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 10, Episode 35, overall 530 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, along with their great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac vehicles as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210. Tell them that Chris Palme sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family run and operated here in the city of Guelph since 1969, and yours truly has been a customer of Barry Cullen Chevrolet for the last 25 years. And I want to give a shout out tonight to one of the service consultants at Barry Cullen Chevrolet, Smith, who always goes beyond more than normal for a customer, and that's what I love about Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Not just the products there, but the customer service there is outstanding. So I want to give a big thumbs up to Greg Smith, a consultant, service consultant who helped me out this morning with my vehicle. I hope everyone's doing well on this Monday, April 28th, 2025. It is Canadian Federal Election Day today. So guys, just please at least go out and vote. People in Ontario host having 30 tonight. So at least do the right thing, make a vote, and at least you have a say in what goes on in your country as well. All right, guys, I'm looking forward to my show tonight. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of the show. This is his fourth appearance on our show, and he is the radio and TV analyst for the Buffalo Bandits on CW23 and 1520 in the Bet in Buffalo, and his name is Steve Bermel. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Hey, Chris. Doing well. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk about this past weekend's games and the semifinals coming up.
Yes, I watched the game on Friday night against San Diego, and what a game! And I guess that was the lowest scoring game in National Lacrosse League of history.
Yeah, I remember the game that always comes to mind is the East Conference Final in 2009. The East Division Final. Buffalo went out to New York. We drove out to Prudential Center in East Rutherford, and the Titans beat the Bandits 9-3. And I remember what an outstanding game the Titans goaltender had that night. And the name is slipping me. I think his name is Matt Vince. I think he was the goalie that night for the Titans. And it was a spectacle that he put on that night, 16 years ago now. And another great defensive spectacle and goaltending performance by both teams. And what's interesting is I kind of expected a bit of a shootout, because in the two regular season games, 13-12 and 12-11 or whatever they finished, an overtime winner in the following week, but both games featured back and forth. And this was back and forth, but man, oh man, what a low-scoring defensive battle! And I'm sure we could break down a little more what kind of led to the defensive battle. But it's a great game on Friday. It's a fun change of pace. Like, I really enjoyed seeing defense and goaltending show up. Not that a high-scoring game isn't exciting, but it's not something you see often, to have a goalie put in that kind of performance, let alone both goaltenders have the performance that they did last Friday.
Of an extra performance from your co-worker, the sideline reporter Dave Buchanan, who had to fill in for you and John for a few minutes to start that third quarter. And you know what? I thought he did a very good job.
Yeah, we're fortunate. Dave's got a lot of experience in radio and in sportscasting. He calls races as well, does basically play-by-play announcing for races at the track. And he's, it's pretty cool because, not only did he do a great job, but he was in his element. Like, he didn't freeze up. He didn't, there was no nerves. That he crushed it. He did an outstanding job. We just had a technical difficulty in the truck with our microphones and our mics up top weren't working, but Dave's down between the benches was. And what an all-time performance from Dave Buchanan.
Hey, like I said, everybody always talks about the teams, but a broadcast is like a team as well. And sometimes you're thrown into a situation where you're not really ready to go, and he was. And I thought he did a great job. And you guys always do a good job. You and John have really good on-air chemistry. Same with Dave, and I really enjoy your broadcasts.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure to work with someone that's been in the industry as long as John has. And, him and Dave and I, the benefit is too, not only do we work together, we're friends. The few times that we have gone on the road, we got out to Albany last year for game one of the finals, and the team had practice that night at like 6:30 or 7. And we were hungry. We didn't want to wait for dinner. So the three of us got an Uber, went back to the hotel, checked in, and got another Uber and went out to dinner, just the three of us. So there's benefit to that, that we not only are we doing a job together, we're friends. In the morning before a game at shoot around, we have breakfast together. We are kind of the three amigos at the Bandits shoot arounds in the morning, and there's definitely chemistry there between the three of us because we've got a lot of experience working together. And for those that don't know, Dave and I filled in Rochester for a game this year, and Dave did color and I did sideline. So it was kind of interesting that not only did we worked together in a different capacity, but him and I flipped roles. So, I think that the three of us can fill each other's roles if we ever needed to. There was a game that John Gertler did play-by-play for the national broadcast. So I did play-by-play on radio only, and Dave did color for me. So, we've got a talented group, and I've learned a ton from those guys, and it's a pleasure to work with them.
Hey, Steve, any chance that you might be going to Vancouver on Sunday night for game 2 then?
I haven't heard yet. I'm not sure if the team is going to take me out there. I would be lying if I told you that I wasn't thinking about going anyway. I actually have to look at flights. That's on my goal for tonight. When we went to the finals in Calgary in 2019, I did not travel with the team, but I actually found a pretty reasonable flight from round trip from Toronto to Calgary that was reasonable, and a hotel that was reasonable. And I think I did the whole trip for like less than $500. Which was well worth it. I just traveled by myself and had an awesome time. I actually ended up calling the game with Gertz when I was out there. He was like, he's here. He brought his suit. Have him call the game. And they decided to let me work the game. I just didn't want to miss it in 2019. It was one of those things. I'm like, who knows if we'll ever be in the finals again? Little did I know the Bandits were going to make the finals every year subsequently. Up until this year, they've been in the finals, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't heard anything from the team, but that doesn't mean I'm not going. So I admittedly will be looking up some flights tonight.
If the Bandits do get by Vancouver in this series, this would be their 5th straight trip to the NLL finals, if I'm right?
Interrupted by COVID, right? The
Yes.
COVID shortened year, but 2019 in the finals, Matt Vince's first year with the Bandits, which makes it all the more impressive that Matt Vince has never missed the finals in his time with Buffalo. So yes, that 5 sounds right because of the 2020 year that we lost to 2020 that we lost to COVID. So something like that sounds right. Just incredible feat. What a feat for this team. And they've had plenty of regular seasons to get there, right? Last year started out 6-6, battled their way to the 4 seed. This year started out 7-0, and we're in the 1 spot almost all year, if not all year long. What a different path they've taken over these last few years, but they always find themselves in a spot. They earn the right to at least be in this spot, to the right to compete for a trip to the finals.
Steve, they did get off to a good start, 7-0 this year, which really helped get the number 1 seed. But in the second half of the season, they were kind of 500. Do you feel that it was just kind of like, let's get on with this and get to the playoffs?
I think there was a couple factors. One would be that, right? Once they have the playoff spot locked, that Georgia game 2 weeks ago, I put no stock in, right? They had the 1 seed. It meant nothing. I know you don't want to limp into the playoffs, but there's a couple of factors. One, the playoffs were locked up. The 1 seed was all but locked up. A home playoff game was locked up. 2, they were banged up, right? They're still pretty banged up. You got guys that are hurt, playing hurt. I know that's the case for everybody, but don't forget the schedule, Chris. This team did not have a bye week down the stretch. They had all their bye weeks in the first, 8 weeks of the year or something like that. They went from, playing a game, having a bye week, playing a game, having a bye week, playing a game, having a bye week, to playing 8 straight games, including 2 back-to-backs, or 8 straight weekends with 2 back-to-backs unofficially. So their schedule was backloaded, and I think that can affect, the guys the way they feel physically. As much as they don't want bye weeks, I think that they are beneficial. especially late in the year. If you look at the Nighthawks, they played the first 10 weeks of the season without a bye and then got all their buys at the end of the year. And look at the stretch run they made, right? They were outstanding down the stretch in the regular season, the Nighthawks were. So definitely some contributing factors, but coming into the playoffs 2-3 probably wasn't ideal, but now they're 1-0 and that's all that matters.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you this later on, but how does this team look house-wise going into Friday's game against Vancouver? And I know Josh Byrne left that game for a little bit as well. I don't know if it was his ankle or not, but he did return.
Yeah, he took a pick. I don't know if he saw it coming, and we know picks in the playoffs are a lot harder, and he took a pretty heavy pick, and he was hobbled. He went down the tunnel and came back. The next couple shifts, he would step out on the floor to take the shift, and someone would pass him. They kind of had him stay out there. He did finish the game. That's correct. I believe Adam Levy's already reported that Byrne is expected to play this weekend. I believe he heard that from JT, but it's not confirmed, right? There's no official injury report, and I don't know that. I'm just relaying the hearsay that's buzzing around a little bit. But obviously, you had Nick Weiss and Cam Wires go down against Georgia. They both played last week, didn't miss a shift. Kyle Matisse got moved to IR with a lower body injury. Nothing confirmed yet, but he might play this weekend, which is crazy, but it's not off the table. Once again, I don't have any official reporting on that, but he's not ruled out, even though he had that lower body injury. So yeah, they're banged up. You had Kluche missed some time, Nanakoke missed some time. They're gonna play now because of the playoffs and what it means. Something like Josh Byrne at this point, if it was the regular season, they might say, we're gonna let him rest up. But because it's the playoffs, I think he's going to be out there. So once again, I don't have any confirmation. I just know that there's been a lot of guys banged up these past few weeks.
Finger crossed. Hey, Steve, wanted to ask you the NLL scheduling in that next season. What kind of adjustments and changes would you like to see to it? Obviously, the bye weeks being spread out would be better for all the teams.
This is strictly you teed me up to give my opinion. I think the NLL season could be played in 18 weeks. I think you play 18 games in 18 weeks. Every team has 2 byes. Every team has 2 back-to-backs, right? I know back-to-backs are harder for some teams than others. It might be more difficult, but we've seen the league have Toronto play in Vegas on Friday or Saturday, and then in San Diego, they bust. During the regular season, Toronto flew to Vegas, bust from Vegas to San Diego, played 2 games in the same weekend. This was 2 years ago, last season, and they won both games. So we've seen the schedule require some grueling travel for these teams, but especially with Buffalo, Toronto, Rochester, Philly, right? Those teams should have no issue playing a back-to-back amongst themselves. If Georgia comes up and plays, at Buffalo and at Toronto, or at Rochester and at Buffalo, or you have Albany's in that mix as well, that you can bus. We bust from Albany from Friday to Saturday, right? So if a team plays Albany Friday, they could play Buffalo Saturday, or they could play Rochester Saturday. Even teams from out west could do that. Or, you have a home and home between Calgary and Colorado where they play Friday, Sunday. I don't know. I just think the season can be shortened. I'm a longtime season ticket holder before I was in the media, and the season used to start in January after Christmas and was done in April or May before Memorial Day. Now it starts earlier than ever, beginning of December, which I love the 18 games. Don't get me wrong. I want more games played. But, if this goes all the way, Memorial Day weekend, the holiday here in the States, the finals are going to be played that weekend. So, I spent Memorial Day 2 years ago in Colorado. I'm certainly not complaining. Don't hear that. But I think that we could shorten the regular season by 3 weeks instead of 21. Everyone plays 18 games in 18 weeks. Everyone has 2 back-to-backs. Everyone has 2 bye weeks.
Thoughts on the Halifax Saskatchewan series? I know that series has been changed a little bit. I guess Saskatchewan is going to play in Halifax game 1, and then game 2 and 3 in Saskatchewan. Is that because of an arena conflict? I don't understand the reason for that.
I don't know. I think I remember hearing, and once again unofficially, that it was suggested last year that Buffalo was going to play game 1 at home. And Albany did not want to give Buffalo game 1 at home. I think Albany had like the circus on that Saturday or something. And Albany did not want to give Buffalo game 1 at home. They didn't want to risk going down 1-0 on the 1-0 on the road. So instead of it being game 1 in Albany and then games 2 and 3, game 1 in Buffalo and games 2 and 3 in Albany, we did the whole back-to-back, right? Game 1 of the finals was Friday, game 2 was Saturday. So I don't know, Chris. I don't know what caused it. I mean, obviously both teams have to agree to play the schedule that's laid out in front of them. There's a lot of people scratching their heads as to why game one is in Halifax and not Saskatchewan, but obviously it's a lot of travel, right? This is a long way from Halifax to Saskatchewan. So I don't know what went into the decision. I don't have any look behind the curtain. I don't know why that's the case, but definitely a scheduling quirk. You know, when the league first brought out the schedule, they mentioned if the semifinals wrapped up the first weekend, that the finals could move up a week. Well, now that's not possible because Saskatchewan Halifax aren't even playing game two until, you know, a week and a half from now. So I don't know what went into it. I mean, overall, the teams agreed, and I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a series between those two because those are two great lacrosse teams. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I wish I had some better insight for you, Chris. I don't know why it happened, but there's a million reasons that it could be.
Them doing that with Buffalo, Vancouver as well, to have game one in Vancouver and then 2-3 in Buffalo. The American Hockey League actually does that in their playoffs, the Calder Cup playoffs. The team with the lower or the lower seed gets the home game, the first game, and then 2 and 3, if necessary, are played in the higher seeds arena.
Yeah, I know a lot of AHL travel is different, right? You'll play the same team 2 days in a row or whatever. You know, you'll have a back-to-back with the same team both on the road. I know I went to an Amerks game a couple of years ago and they were playing the Marlies and they played them again the day after, right? The Marlies just stayed and played a couple of games. So I get it. It's definitely makes travel easier, especially, you know, most of these teams are flying commercial and it might be hard to find flights that are available, you know, in such short notice. You know, 48 hours ago, Chris, these teams didn't know where they were playing the next round. So it's hard to schedule, you know, travel for 23 players and X number of staff. And so that could definitely be playing a role into why the schedule played out the way that it did.
And then not to mention the flights, but you got to book a hotel as well.
Yeah. I mean, you got to figure out flights, meals, hotels, you know, even Buffalo's itinerary this weekend, right? It's game one in Buffalo and then flying out Saturday morning. So hotel by the airport in Toronto is, you know, an option for the guys if they want. So after game one, they can go stay at a hotel prior to the flight out, or they can go home. I think I'm not sure about that 100%, but you know, even that itinerary, I think a lot of people don't realize just how much work goes into what, you know, someone like Scott Loeffler and Dan Ristine have to do to organize travel for the Bandits organization. It's not as easy as, oh, we'll just get on a plane and fly out to Vancouver. You know, there's a ton of moving parts.
What's the latest on Steve Dietrich? Is he able to come back behind the bench? Is he still off away?
He was in the building Friday morning for shoot around, so that was good to see. That's obviously a huge step for him. I believe he watched the game from up in the coach's box, or he may have watched it downstairs in the coach's room. But got to be closer, right? If he was on the field for shoot around Friday morning. I actually had a work meeting for my day job Friday from like 10 to 11:15, so I missed almost the entirety of shoot around. Got there at 8:30. Pre-recorded interviews and pre-game radio, and then I jumped on that work call for an hour and 15 minutes. And by the time I was done, shoot around was wrapping up. But I did see Steve Dietrich walking off the floor. So back in the building, that's a good sign and a good step that he's doing well and doing better. So not sure when he'll be back behind the bench, but excuse me, could be sooner than later. Having him at practice or at shoot around Friday morning certainly looks like a good sign.
Steve, what did San Diego do well in holding this high-power Bandits offense to 5 goals and holding Josh Byrne scoreless in this playoff game? I think it's only the third time in his career, I think, that he's been held scoreless.
Well, there was a lot of guys held scoreless on
Yes.
Friday night because of what a great defensive show
Yes.
it was in goaltending. You know, San Diego opted to use like a half-court press, which was interesting because normally, you know, teams will pack it in pretty tight in front of their goaltender. And, you know, as teams are changing, the defense is doing their best to get 5 guys in front of the net into position and start to take away the middle of the floor. And San Diego opted to have guys push up the floor and kind of be waiting right at the center line for the Bandits in transition. And what I noticed is oftentimes the Bandits forward, Ian McKay or Dane Smith, would come out the front door and would come back to almost the face-off dot to be an inlet pass. So you have your transition guys, Nick Weiss or Steve Priolo or Dylan Robinson, bringing it up the floor, And because they're being pressured, the forward out of the bench was coming back to the ball. Normally, that transition could bring it all the way to the restraining line pretty much unhindered. And San Diego opted to go for the half court press, and it gave Buffalo shorter shot clocks to work with. Now, obviously, it's a little bit risky because your defense is wide open in front of the net. If they're able to beat it and get inside, that can be the high risk, high reward system, that they opted to play. But that look was definitely different. Ian McKay told Dave Buchanan at halftime they were prepared for it. They knew what was coming, and they kind of said that, hey, 14 or 15 seconds is still a long time to work in an offensive set. So they were losing a little bit of time on every offensive set because of that the pressure put on by San Diego. And the other side of it, Chris, is even when Buffalo got real good looks out in front, Chris Origlieri was there. I mean, he played. Tip your hat to the 22-year-old kid. Absolutely spun on his head. You can't ask him to do anything more than he did on Friday night. And credit to the Seals defense, credit to the game plan, credit to the way they controlled the ball. But when push came to shove, both of those goaltenders absolutely showed out when it came time. So, full marks to San Diego and their game plan and how they played. But you have to tip your hat to Chris Origlieri. Orig, what a game from the kid.
He's got a bright future ahead of him. And the San Diego team, I think next year is going to be in the hunt as a contender again as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've got all the pieces, right? If you have a solid goaltender, you are set for success, and they certainly seem to have that. And then, they've got a face-off guy. I think Baptiste signed there long-term, if I remember correctly. Baptiste is there for a while. And then Wes Berg, that type of guy you can build a franchise around. Just absolutely outstanding veteran player who several times this year put the Seals on his back, including that overtime winner against Buffalo, where he scored 5 goals, including the overtime winner. Wes Berg has the ability to take over a game and bring the team with them. So, yeah, they've got a great mix of young guys that are filling in roster spots, but at the very top, a stud goaltender, a fierce leader on offense, a solid defense. They've got it all. And I think Gertler's stat was San Diego's had 65 different players on their roster, since their inception. They've had a ton of turnover, but this group, like you mentioned, seems to be a damn good group of guys to find some success, in the NLL and in the postseason.
And ironically, it was a former SEAL that kind of scored the game-winning goal in this game. To me, that was the biggest turning point right there. Was Kyle Buchanan's goal with 1/10 of a second left, and then ironically, at the end of the game, San Diego scored with 1 second.
Yeah, Zach Currier scored with exactly a second left after
or even
that.
less than that.
Yeah, exactly 1 second. Kyle Buchanan, the original SEAL. So when the franchise was created, before any draft or dispersal draft or expansion draft or anything like that, the first player San Diego signed was Kyle Buchanan, the OG, the original San Diego SEAL, Kyle Buchanan. And hey, 36 years old, 37, the career year in goals, 34 goals in the regular season. Just continues to be an outstanding player in every facet. But to set a career high for goals at this stage of his career on a team like Buffalo with such high-end scoring talent, man, what an impressive stat and an impressive season for Bucky.
I've only covered the Bandits since 2022, but I just can't imagine Kyle Buchanan being with another franchise, because when I think of him, I think of a Buffalo Bandit. He fits in so well with this franchise and organization.
He's exactly what you need, right? Like you have different guys out the front door for Buffalo. Like you have Dane, the assist, the facilitator. The ball goes through him. You have Josh, a finisher, but also a good facilitator. You have Kluche, a little more physical, right? A little more open up some space. You have Fraser, the maybe the most athletic guy on the offense, right? Super shifty. And then you have the energy guys, and that's Kyle Buchanan going into a corner, digging out a loose ball, getting that reset on the ball team on the face-offs at every face-off. And on the other side, Clay Scanlon now showing that he's an energy guy, right? There was a set that Buffalo had when Dehogan Nanticoke took the hit up high, the 5-minute major that was reduced. I think that was the Bandits' 4th reset of the possession. So they had 4 shots on goal, and it was their 5th time with the ball when Nanticoke took the hit. A huge loose ball by Kyle Buchanan, a huge loose ball by Clay Scanlon. And you can't just put 5 guys out there who know how to score. You have to have other guys that fill other roles, and that's exactly what they have. And I would argue it's harder to find a player like Kyle Buchanan, who is that shifty loose ball, scrappy, quick, whatever. I think it's harder to find that player than a goal scorer. Not that goal scoring in the NLL is easy. That's not what I'm saying. But a player that brings the dynamic, skill set that Buchanan has, in my opinion, might be harder to find than, an offensive juggernaut that scores 40 goals and 40 assists a year.
And another player I'd like to talk to you about is Ian McKay, man. He, Mr. Big Time. When the Bandits need a goal, obviously these teams are going to focus on Smith and Byrne, and you got to have other guys step up, and the other guys did step up in this game against San Diego.
Did you see the gift his grandma got him?
I heard about it. Army knife, a little one.
A Swiss Army knife with his name engraved on it, which is perfect, right? Because he's such a Swiss Army knife. Before this team signed Max Adler 2 years ago, and before they had Connor Farrell last year and this year, Ian McKay was taking faceoffs. Ian McKay is a midfielder in the field game and plays long pole in the summer ball, plays defense. Last year, because of injuries to the defense, he was supposed to play out the front door last season. And guess what? They got banged up. He played full-time defense in transition. He didn't even play offense out the front door because of the injuries out the back door. This year, he finally gets his chance to play out the front door and has an incredible season. Was it the Ottawa game? He had 5 goals on 5 shots, like just insane. And it's not like he's a guy who, oh yeah, he's a great goal scorer, and if he does anything else, it's a bonus. He does everything, and he does it well. Like, I think he's the fastest player the Bandits have in transition. I think if he scoops a loose ball on the defensive end and he puts the afterburners on, he might be the fastest guy on the team. I've asked him if he's raced some of the other guys because I think he's got more speed than anybody. And in a game where they scored 5 goals, he had 2, and that's humongous. He had 40% of the team's offense, and and it's not even from a true forward. You know what I mean? Like, he can play forward, but he hasn't up till this point in his career, and it's incredible to see. You mentioned secondary scoring and these guys, kind of filling in when Josh and Dane aren't the ones scoring the ball. And man, oh man, full marks to Ian McKay because that guy's incredible.
And Nick Weiss, he had a big goal as well. And you need that. You need everyone to do their jobs. And that's what makes this team so difficult to beat in a series, is because it's not just 1 or 2 guys. It's an entire team full of guys. And you're right, Clay Scanlon, who's a New York native, he's been a valuable addition. And I was going to say, when the Bandits bring these guys in, obviously they're looking for talent. But what other qualities do JT and Steve look for when they bring in Buffalo Bandits besides the talent aspect of it?
Yeah, first I'm going to talk about that goal by Nick Weiss because that was insane. The fact that he put the brakes on and poor Eli Gobrecht falls down and is, swimming on the turf, and Weiss steps around him. And I said to him, I'm so glad you finished that play because, you hit the brakes and you put a guy on his face in the turf, and then what a sweet way to finish, to do the crease dive and bury it. But, I think that there has to be an agreement to the role. Like, you can't forget Dane Smith started his career with Buffalo out the back door. Like, this is the best offensive player possibly ever to play the game, who's scoring 134 points a year and breaking every offensive record there is. And when he came to Buffalo, he played defense. Mitch Jones, great forward, right? Great goal scorer, Philadelphia, Vancouver. When he was in Buffalo, he played defense. So I think that there's a certain expectation with the Bandits, one, because they have top tier guys in the offensive roles or in certain roles that you have to, kind of earn your stripes. But 2, you have to fill in the areas that are not already, you have to check boxes that are not already checked. If that's setting picks, if that's being a loose ball guy, if that's being a transition guy, if that's playing man short, if that's whatever it is, you just got to think about a player like Lucas Nielsen, who's a great forward. When he plays, he's expected to be setting picks and making room for Dane Smith and Chase Fraser, not being the guy that the ball goes through. Maybe an example, look at when Connor Fields was here, an outstanding player. Joe Resiteritz, an outstanding player. But the Bandits already had the top end lefty in Josh Byrne, already had a top end righty in Dane Smith. And it's not that it didn't work out. Connor Fields was a great player while he was here. They lost him in the expansion draft. It's not that he didn't work out. It's not like the relationship wasn't good or he wasn't a good player. But you have to be able to fill a role that this team needs. And that might look a little bit different than a traditional role or the role that these guys have played before. So I think versatility is very important to Steve Dietrich and the team, because coming to Buffalo, you might be playing a role that you've never played before.
A lot of professional sports teams should look at the Bandits, because they used to call it the Patriot way, the Bandit way, and it's a recipe for success. And I see this team, no matter what happens this playoff run, Steve, I see this team for the next few years being a contender going forward.
Yeah, there's a culture, right? The culture is
Yep.
championship or bust. The culture isn't, gee, I hope we make the playoffs. The culture isn't, gee, I hope, we have a winning season. The culture is win a championship, right? It's not enough to make the final or to be in the playoffs or to be the one seed. And you're right. That's the way. And the standard has always been for this team, championship or bust. It's never been, let's hope we get into the playoffs. And that can happen when you have years of, where you're struggling to make the playoffs, and it can be a hurdle to clear. And, Halifax super excited to host a playoff game. Vancouver excited to win the first playoff game in Vancouver history, going all the way back to the Ravens and the Stealth. Vancouver never won a home playoff game. They had all their success in Washington when they won the championship. So, there can be different goals, but for the Bandits, the goal is very clear, and it starts with the top, the executives in the organization, but that trickles all the way down, through Dane and Josh, to the players, to every guy on the roster, to the guys on the practice squad. The understanding and the belief is that this team should win a championship, or the season didn't work out.
That's what makes John Tavares and this coaching staff so special, is they're able to deal with guys' egos and get them to buy into the team first instead of a player. It's everyone's for everybody. It's a true team. It's really a true team.
Well, in the way that they run things, I've had a couple of players talk to me who are either considering retirement or have retired, or, they get to the end of their career and they'll say, yeah, I think this is my last year. Well, unless Buffalo calls, because they know if they come to Buffalo, they're going to be treated right. That's going to be, I've had other players just talk to me about how Buffalo runs things and how they're a top tier organization. So it goes both ways. Like there's an expectation that you're going to have that championship standard, but they also from the top down execute that, right? They try to run the organization in such a way that it is championship standard, from our broadcast to our, professionalism with training staff, and to, sports psychologists, and, even look at the role that Brett Swenson plays, like he's breaking down huddles at the end of shoot around, because, they value Brett in his, fandom and his dad's connection to the Bandits. And, I remember how cool it was when I found out that, in 2008, Swenny got a ring. And I'm like, that's amazing that the team gave you a ring because you've been a staple of the organization. And, now I cannot say enough about how privileged I feel that I have, 2 championship rings from this organization as one of the broadcasters. So it truly is a top tier organization that I'm grateful to be a part of. And, the success that they have is earned because they've established this standard, and it's upheld from the top down.
Well, my news, the Buffalo Bandits, because when I started covering lacrosse a few years ago, I tried for another team. They turned me down, and I approached the Buffalo Bandits, and this organization gave me opportunities. And thanks to John and yourself and the organization, even though I don't work for the Bandits, I feel like I'm a part of the organization.
Yeah, they know how, they appreciate people covering them too. They never take for granted when someone says, hey, I'd like to come cover this team for you, because they're excited to have people talking about them. And, they don't turn down that opportunity. They don't turn up their nose to people. They respect media, and they're grateful to have them covering the team. And, even back when I was a sports writer for IL Indoor, before I worked for the Bandits in the league, they would say, thanks for doing that story. Thanks for giving us the coverage. Thanks for, thanks for bringing eyes to our team and being a voice to kind of give us, an avenue to connect with people. So yeah, they appreciate it, and it's awesome that you're, covering the team, and it's cool that, you said you feel like you're a part of the organization, and it doesn't
I do.
surprise me because of the way they treat people.
Absolutely. Hey, Steve, since I got you on here, what was the turning point in this game for the Bandits against San Diego at the KeyBank Center from your perspective as an analyst?
So you mentioned the goal from Buchanan, and that certainly was huge, to score a goal with zero point 0.1 seconds to go. But I think the bigger part, Chase Fraser takes a penalty, and then an illegal substitution happens, and San Diego's got a 5-on-3. And that felt like a huge moment in the game. Well, then San Diego takes a penalty, and they still have a 5-on-4 man advantage. Then Fraser gets out, and they play 4-on-4. Then the Bandits had a shortened power play. But point is, nobody scored during any of those special teams runs. Nobody scored 5-on-3. The Seals didn't score 5-on-3. The Seals didn't score 5-on-4. The Bandits and Seals didn't score 4-on-4. The Bandits didn't score on their 5-on-4 power play. But that, I believe, benefited the Bandits, obviously. When you can kill a 5-on-3, and there was significant time. It was like a minute and 38 seconds or something like that. With 5-on-3 in a game that they were leading by 2 at the time. When you can keep them scoreless, when you take essentially a minute and a half 5-on-3 penalty, however it shakes out, is huge. And the fact that Buffalo got out of that unscathed, I think that kind of sealed the way the rest of that game was going to go. And all-time performance from Matt Vince. That guy was incredible. The number of saves that he made from right out in front, including on rebounds, right? He'd make a save on an outside shot, and the rebound comes right out front, and like Berg is right there and scoops it up and tries the quick stick, and Vince just chucks the shoulder up and makes a save, or someone right on top of the crease, Career, or DeChico, and he makes the save, and there's no rebound, and like that type of stuff. Even that goal by Weiss, he makes a save right on the doorstep on a second chance, scoops up the loose ball, and put a dot into Weiss's stick in transition that got him out. There was a lot to say about the performance from Vince throughout, but I think the turning point was that 5-on-3 not resulting in any goals for San Diego.
You know what? Vince is kind of inspiring me too, because Vince is 42, 43, and that's considered
42.
old. 42 as a professional athlete. He just seems to keep getting better as he ages, just like wine.
Yeah, and the bigger the game, the bigger he plays, Chris. We've seen it time and time again where, I think he didn't have a great game against Georgia, maybe. He didn't have the best regular season of his career by any stretch, a couple times giving up 12-13, even when Buffalo wins. That's all in the rear view now. The lights turn up bright, man. You're at home in a single game elimination, and holy shnikes, did he shut the door. I mean, just an absolute brick wall back there. And, the bigger the moment, the bigger he plays. And, John Tavares told me before the game, I asked him about, all the playoff experience, the deep runs, does that benefit the team? And he goes, yeah. He goes, especially in a game like this, you learn how to deal with the highs and lows, because there's going to be highs and lows in every game, and you don't waver when the game script changes. You don't waver. And he said, but I also hope we don't get overconfident, because we've been in so many of these situations. Yeah, we've been here before. Ho hum, we'll do it again. Man, they played the opposite of that on Friday. There was no ho-hum shifts. From Matt Vince out, they locked in every single shift. And I thought some of the Bandits had their best career games. Thomas Whitty, I thought, had his best game as a Bandit. Zach Belzer, I thought, had his best game as a Bandit. And these are unsung heroes whose name, Thomas Whitty got the belt. And Chris, I'm telling you, I texted my wife halfway through the fourth quarter. I'm like, Whitty's having the best game I've seen him have as a Bandit. And then he got the belt, and my wife's like, yeah, I guess he did have a good game. And they recognize what a hell of a performance he put on. So they had everybody playing at an incredibly high level. And, it starts and ends with Matt Vince. If you've got good goaltending, you've got 95% of what you need to win a postseason game.
I was going to ask you the next question about unsung hero, but you could pretty well give everybody a belt for that game, because it really was a true team win. Probably Matt was a big factor in this game too.
Yeah, and
now in terms of all time. Oh, go ahead.
I say the Bandits
Go ahead,
offense
Stacey.
struggled for sure, only scoring 5 goals, but it wasn't for a lack of, they didn't play sloppy. They weren't turning the ball over.
No.
They were getting good looks. San Diego was breaking up passes and blocking shots, but it's not like Buffalo would come down, have a 30-second shot clock, miss the net, and it was like all these empty possessions where you're like, oh, they're off. It really didn't feel that way. Like their offense didn't look bad. Just the defense and O'Rig were there to stymie them a little bit, and and then full credit to everybody on defense. My goodness, even Connor Farrell had a nice day against Trevor Baptiste. I think he won like 5 out of 11 or 5 out of 12 draws, which is not easy to do against Baptiste. So, like you said, top to bottom, when you win a playoff game, you have to do a lot of things right. And to win a playoff game without scoring in the second half, 5-4, they did a lot of things right.
The milkman Connor Farrell, who they acquired just over a year ago, what a valuable addition to this franchise and organization.
I may have said this before on the show, Chris, that I am not a big face-offs matter guy.
Yes.
I think you can win games even without winning face-offs. I remember, there's been in years past, the Bandits would lose face-offs on purpose. Back when officials had to reset the ball, they would lose on purpose and get all 5 guys back on defense to Jeff Snyder. I am not stupid, though, and I realize how valuable possession can be, especially at certain points of a game. And having a chance to win a draw with Connor Farrell certainly makes a difference. And I'm also not dumb enough to realize that this team with Max Adler and Connor Farrell won the championship. And before Max Adler and Connor Farrell, they couldn't win the championship. I'm not saying they're directly correlated, but that said, first off, the guy's awesome. His character, like he loves being here. Everybody loves him. He's doing commercials for the Western New York dairy farmers, Chris. He's on Facebook as the milkman for the dairy farmers of Western New York. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, he has embraced being a Bandit. Buffalo has embraced him. And man, he did a signing at a bookstore or a card store around here. The line was out the freaking out the street around the corner. Like, amazing. But then also, not only is he, a popular player, but he has held his own against the likes of T.D. Erlin, Jake Withers, Trevor Baptiste. It's not easy to hang with those guys. And, his faceoff percentage, I think, was like 53% this year. Outstanding. I mean, just awesome to have him. He plays a factor. So all love for the milkman.
I always get upset when somebody says, oh, Buffalo's just the Bills and Sabres town. I'm like, the Buffalo Bandits, I think, are just as loved as the Sabres and Bills. And to me, Buffalo is not just a one or two sports team city, but you got Bison still also AAA for the Blue Jays. But the Bandits organization is just, to me, it's professional lacrosse. And I think hopefully this sport will continue to grow, because I think indoor lacrosse is great, and I want to see the league expand and see more games as well in the future.
What, they averaged like 17.8 or something this year in attendance. Sellout is 19,070. They've sold out a bunch, and they outdrew like 11 NHL teams and so many NBA teams for average attendance on the year, which is just incredible. I mean, they are filling the barn up, and they've always had good support, but of course winning helps. And I'll agree about like them becoming more popular in the city. Like Dane and Josh are doing commercials for banks and plumbing, and they're on billboards for breweries or something. Like, they're all over the place. They've become kind of spokesmen for local businesses in Buffalo. So that's kind of a thing. And the other part of it is it feels like a Bandits game is kind of like a ticket. Like, people want to go. Like, I've had a couple of instances this year where people are saying, hey, can you score me some tickets to the game, because they want to go and it's sold out, or the only seats are in the last row of the 300 level. Like, it's a bit of a hot ticket. And, I'm so excited because it's important to support a team that's so successful. And obviously the lowest attendance that Buffalo had this year was like 17 and change, and the next highest team in the NLL for their highest attended game was like 12 or something.
12, Calgary.
And that's not to crap on anybody else. That's not it. It's just that Buffalo is the Mecca, man. And the number of people who show up, like for me and you, is where we, we're first exposed. But when we get someone from out of town, like when Brad Challoner came in to do color with Gertz for that one game, he was like, he had made his pilgrimage, right? Like, he was like, I can't believe I'm calling a game in Buffalo. And like, being in the press box, the view up there is incredible, and the way the game shoots, camera and lights and from the press box and the point of view, it's incredible. So it truly is an experience, and I'm excited for someone that's been going to Bandits games since 1995. I'm excited to see them embraced. And for those that don't know, Chris, I don't know if you even know this, but when they started in 1991, the first game ever, Face-Off had to get delayed by 20 minutes because they had so many people walking up to buy tickets. So when they started in the early 90s, they were a hot ticket then too, because it was something new and people
Wow.
were excited about it. But the first ever home Bandits game, Face-Off was delayed to accommodate the number of people in line at the box office looking to buy tickets. So Buffalo's always
And
been
that
a
was at the
lacrosse
old.
town, Chris.
I just wish I had followed the sport much sooner, and I just love lacrosse, and I actually watch more of it than hockey nowadays. I still love hockey, but just lacrosse, and I love these one game winner go home series or best of threes because you can't afford to have bad games. You're gone.
Yeah, and for the Bandits, I think it's even more interesting because it feels like obviously in a 3-game series they're going to be tougher to beat because they're a really good team, and if they have a hiccup and lose a game, they're going to have a hard time beating them 2 out of 3. But in a single game, man, Georgia took the Bandits to overtime last year, and if Byrne didn't score an
Sure.
OT, it'd be a completely different script, right? And the single elimination, it's an awesome, tense. Like, man, oh man, like I just remember, a Friday all day, the clock was
Nerves?
moving like molasses. And then honestly, Chris, even after the game was over and the Bandits had won, I woke up Saturday morning looking for those 3 games, like checking my watch, like to find out who Buffalo was going to play. Of course, that was the later game, the Vancouver Roch game. But I was like waiting to see these other games because you're right. The the excitement or the I don't even know what you want to call it, the weight of the single game elimination. Like, I'm not surprised that the 4 home teams won, but man, if Rochester would have beat Vancouver, it would have been like, holy crap, but nobody would have been shocked because Rochester's played hot down the stretch. If Calgary would have beaten Halifax, nobody would have been shocked. If San Diego would have beaten Buffalo,
Yeah.
they already did that this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if San Diego comes into Buffalo and beats them as the 8 seed, nobody is saying, holy cow, what an upset. They would have been
Yeah.
like, well, we didn't see that coming, but not surprised that San Diego squad was able to beat Buffalo in a single game. So now that it goes to 3 game, it's a little less stressful, and you feel like you got a little bit of a longer leash. But you look at last year, that didn't stop Buffalo from winning the first 2 games. So,
Hey, Steve, before we wrap this up, what are your thoughts on the next opponent, the Vancouver Warriors, coming into this series? And did you get to see some of their win against Rochester, 15-10 at the Rogers Arena?
yeah, I watched the whole game. I tuned in before face-off and stayed throughout. I wanted to see where Buffalo was going to play next. Obviously, Rochester, a 45-minute drive. If Buffalo was playing Rochester, there was no way that I would have missed it. I probably would have taken the family out too. But now that it's Vancouver, obviously things are a little different. But yeah, that's I tuned into the whole game, and when Buffalo played Vancouver, they didn't have an issue scoring on Del Bianco. I think they lost 13-12. And ultimately, what got away from them was Keegan Ball, right? He did what he can do and potted 10 points or something against Buffalo. And but to say that it's not nerve-wracking to play the Vancouver Warriors, Kurt Malosky, and Christian Del Bianco, man, Del Bianco has made this entire team play better, right? From back to front, he has improved the entire team. Malowski is one of the best coaches in the league. And the other thing that makes it stressful is in 2019, they did it. Malowski and CDB combined their efforts to beat Buffalo 2-0. They came into Buffalo game one in like an 8-5 low scoring snoozer. And then in Calgary, won in overtime. And I think it was Reese Dutch that scored in overtime, if I remember correctly. But Christian Del Bianco, unbelievable goaltender, and you have to be afraid of what he can do to a game as far as an 82 save percentage or whatever the hell he has this year, something incredible, and his ability to get the team out in transition and his outlet passes are second to none. You have to be afraid. And then what Keegan Ball did to them, the last time they played. So you'd be silly if you think that this is going to be an easy series for either team. But what makes you nervous is Del Bianco and Milosky, and the fact that they beat the Bandits in 2019. They have what it takes. Del Bianco knows what it takes to win a championship. But on the other side of it, what I'm kind of hanging my hat on is, look, when you played these guys previously, Del Bianco didn't hold you to 7 goals, and you didn't get frustrated on offense because you couldn't score on him back there. They scored 12, so most games for Buffalo,
Yep.
12 goals is going to be enough to win, especially with how lights out the defense and Vince played on Friday. If they carry that over to this game, if Matisse comes back healthy too, and they have their full D-core, that's what you have to hang your hat on if you're hoping Buffalo's going to win. That's what you have to be leaning on, is that they've scored on Del Bianco before, and they have the 2 games at home. So man, I'm excited for Friday now, man. I'm counting down the days.
When will Vancouver get there? Will they get there a day ahead, Thursday, or will they come on game day?
No, they'll be Thursday. Most times teams will travel day out. Even like Rochester, when we played Rochester, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I took the trip with the bus. We went out Thursday. We had hotel, or we went out the day before, even though it's a short drive. So the only time that it's probably different is Toronto, because the guys live up there and just drive right to the rink, right? But the Bandits usually do offer hotel at the rink the night before as an option. If the guys want to sleep in their own bed, they can, or they can drive up, or they can stay at the hotel. But yeah, Vancouver should be in Thursday and be set up for Thursday morning, Thursday arrival and Friday morning shoot around. So
Christian de Blanco, where do you rank him up there? Do you rank him just right behind Matt Vince? And what are some of his strengths, and what area? I guess you can't really say what areas the Bandits can explore on here, but what challenges does he present to this Bandits team as a goalie?
Well, you're talking about behind Matt Vince this year or all time?
I would say in the last couple years.
Yeah, well, he this year he's the best goaltender in the league statistically, right? 7-0, 8.21 save percentage. Took a team that was muddling around 500 and goes undefeated. If he played the full year, MVP goaltender of the year would be definitely in consideration for him. And I'm not surprised he's not in consideration, having only played 6 regular season games. But his athleticism, he is super athletic, and he reads the ball really well. He doesn't give up a lot of rebounds. And, I'd say at least once or twice a game, an NLL goaltender turns the ball over on an outlet pass. They miss somebody, or, they got 3 seconds to get it out of the crease, so they make a rash decision and they misplay the ball. Del Bianco doesn't do that, man. He is like he's like having a forward out there with a stick in his hands, the way he outlets the ball. So certainly a strength for him. As far as exploiting him, I don't know. I mean, the best thing that I can say is guys like Dane and Josh have played against him a ton and had some success. So they got to know, the scouting report on him. They've got to have the book on him, that if they're going to have success, I'm sure that they'll know what to do to try to beat him, and it's worked in the past. So, but yeah, he's got to be 1 or 1A, this year, the way that he's played. And he's definitely the player you're most nervous about going into this series. Keegan Ball's worth noting too, but it's got to be Del Bianco is the guy that you have to be the most afraid of this series, in my opinion.
Who could be an X factor for Vancouver and an X factor for the Bandits in this series?
I'm thinking about transition again. It's Owen Grant, right? He's crazy. Charlotte Beatties is, not always can do some crazy stuff. Like Charlotte Beatties could have the ball and look like he's got nowhere to go, and all of a sudden he's in the crease and scoring. So the secondary guys for Vancouver, for Buffalo, I think Nick Weiss, Dylan Robinson, those kind of guys. We've seen Weiss score huge goals in transition and in the postseason. He had the game winner against Colorado a few years ago, and I think it's got to come down to transition because. We mentioned the outlet passes from Del Bianco. We know what both of these offenses can do, but it's always a wild card, what happens in transition.
Steve, I wanted to ask you, obviously these two teams played on March 29th, and Vancouver won 13-12. Do you expect to see some different game planning from John Tavares in the coaching series against Vancouver? Some tweaks?
Of course, they're going to have learned some things. It's the first time they've seen Vancouver play with Del Bianco. They know Del Bianco from Calgary. So there might be some changes to be made there, but ultimately, I don't know that they need to change too much. That game, the Bandits played without Zach Belter and Cam Wires, both banged up, and that's a big factor in my opinion. As I said before, I thought Belter had his best game as a Bandit last Friday. I watched him, the way that he moved and took away passing lanes, took away shooting lanes, pursued loose balls. I thought he played really disciplined and played hard, fighting through picks and all that stuff. And Cam Wires is a huge factor on defense, and he's one of the two towers on either side of Matt Vince for the penalty kill. So not having Cam Wires certainly changes things. So I don't even know necessarily about the game plan tweak, but the roster will look different because of the guys who didn't play against Vancouver the first time. So, this coaching staff, they know exactly what they're doing, and I certainly trust that they'll be making some adjustments as needed. But I think the bigger factor might be Cam Wires and or Zach Belter back in the lineup because, playing Vancouver without them, I personally think made it harder on the defense. So we'll see what they can put together with one or both of those guys in the lineup this weekend.
What are some keys to a Buffalo Bandits advancing to the NLL? What are the keys to winning this series?
They got to play bandit ball, right? It has to be their way. Don't chase. They had so many games this year where they spotted leads to the other team, and they're good enough to come back and win those games, like they did it against Toronto when it was 5-0, 6-0. They have the ability to do it, but I think that there's so much value in getting out of the gate, starting strong, which I think they know. Be disciplined. They can't take a ton of penalties. They the most penalized team in the league. I would love to see their power play get going, right? Operated at 40 some odd % this season and over this past week against San Diego. I would like to see the power play get going, but ultimately, Chris, let's be real. It may be biased. You can correct me if I am. They're probably the best team in the league. If they play smart, if they play the way that they're expecting to play, in a 3-game series, the cream should rise to the top. They should find a way, whether it's a 5-4 win or a 15-14 win. They are arguably the best team in the league. Find a way, right? Find a way to be one goal better than them. Coming into the postseason, Chris, I was thinking about this before we came in. People were saying, man, they're not going to go anywhere in the playoffs, giving up 13 goals and giving up 14 goals. And the way they played against Georgia, they're not going to win any playoff games. So they come into game 1 and they win 5-4. They're not going to win any games if they don't score more than 5 goals. Man, it is the playoffs. If you have one more goal on the board than your opposition, whether it's 27-26 or 1-0, you have done your job. In the postseason, especially, all that crap about, they're not going to win many games if they don't, it's out the window. I don't think they give 2 rips that they scored 5 goals on Friday. You know why? Because they advanced. Survive and advance is the name of the game, and find a way to do it.
And you know this, 2 seasons, the regular season. Playoffs is a whole different story from the regular season, and I see the series, in my opinion, Steve, I see the Bandits winning, but I think it's going to go 3 games, and I wouldn't be shocked if one of those 3 games goes to overtime.
I totally agree. I was on Off the Crossbar with Teddy Jenner, Pat Gregoire last year going into the Toronto series, and I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo won the series 2-0 and they won by 5 goals each game, which is kind of what happened. They did kind of trounce them 2-0. But I said I wouldn't be surprised if if Toronto beats Buffalo by 5 goals and wins the series 2-0. And that's kind of how I feel with this. Like, just because they're the 1 seed, we know that all these teams are super good, and Vancouver undefeated with Del Bianco. Buffalo's the higher seed, but that doesn't add up to anything other than having 2 games at home in this series. So, I think it's going to be tightly contested. That said, Chris, we have seen the Bandits absolutely fire up the steamroller sometimes in the postseason. They dismantled Toronto last year. They dismantled Albany in those 2 games last year. The game 3 against Colorado, 13-4, that championship game.
4.
Like, come on. Like they have the ability to dominate in the postseason, and they've done it before. I'm not predicting that would happen, but if it did, I don't think I'd be surprised.
Steve, I'm going to put you on the spot here before we wrap up. What's your overall assessment on the other series against Halifax, against Saskatchewan, and who do you see winning that series? I'm going to give you my prediction. I think it's a toss-up. I think either team can win this series. I'm going to go with Saskatchewan Saskatchewan in 3. Won the series. That's just how I see it.
Did you see the game this past week? Saskatchewan's kind of slow start. They didn't really start on time, in my opinion. They were losing 2-0, and then they went on a run there to take a 4-2 lead. I do think there's some cracks in the armor for Saskatchewan. I think that makes Halifax a little more dangerous. I feel like there might be a little more pressure on Saskatchewan. Let's see what Hutchison can do. Give me Halifax in 3. I think that they can steal one in Sask, and I think that they'll win. They'll win game 1 at home. So I'll take Halifax in 3. I don't know. I think that their roster is equipped. Not that Sask isn't a really good team, but I think I don't know. My gut's telling me Thunderbirds in 3.
Halifax has had a good roster the last couple of years, and I think they've had 1 year where they had a lot of injuries, but I think who comes in the next one series is going to be difficult for the winner of Buffalo Vancouver. So I think these 2 series are going to be some of the best lacrosse we're going to see this year.
Yeah, it's cool that, obviously with the unified standings, you had the top 4 teams kind of felt like they should be the top 4 teams. It didn't feel like there were any imposters, right? It wasn't like there was a team up there like, oh man, they had that 8-game run, but then they lost 6 in a row, but they managed to. It felt like all those 4 teams belonged there, and now they kind of proved it by winning. And now that the top 4 teams are left, it is truly 4 teams that can win the championship. That sounds so cliche. It sounds so goofy to say, oh, any team can win the. No, these 4 teams, all 4 of them are completely capable of winning a championship, and it wouldn't be a fluke if they did. Nobody would say, oh man, nobody saw that coming. It wouldn't be like a surprise team, making it to the final saying, didn't see that coming, a Cinderella story. No, I don't think so at all. These 4 teams are bona fide contenders for the championship.
And finally, Steve, where can my audience follow you on social media, and your next broadcast with John and Dave on 1520 The Bet in Buffalo? Are you guys going to be doing your pregame show a little bit earlier since it's a playoff game?
Still a half hour ahead of time, but it'll be live because we will be radio only. And we got the call to WGR 550 this weekend, so we got the
Perfect.
We got the big game. We got the big station covering us for the semifinals here. So, yep,
Awesome.
Check us out on WGR 550. Half an hour before face-off for our live radio pregame this upcoming weekend. Social media, you got to swing it on the bottom there. At Steve Bermel on X. Same thing on Instagram, Steve Bermel. Find us on WGR 550 this Friday. And find at least Gertler calling the game on 550 Sunday out of Halifax, out of Vancouver. So WGR 550 has picked up the semifinal game. So, look forward to this weekend and super excited for Friday.
And you can also watch the game on TSN Plus, ESPN Plus, and NLL Plus. So even though I won't be at the arena, I will be there in spirit, and I will be watching on the stream. And I think you guys all do a great job, and it's really enjoyable. And I'm really looking forward to the series between Buffalo and Vancouver, and Halifax and Saskatchewan as well, Steve. Before we wrap this up, what's been one of your most memorable Bandits games this season so far?
This season, the most memorable Bandits game, I think it had to be the Toronto game when they were on the road when they went down like 6-0. It kind of meant so much for the rivalry because there's been such a rivalry there, and Buffalo has had Toronto's number for years, and it kind of felt like, oh, maybe Toronto's finally gonna get one, and then Buffalo beat them, and I was like, oh my goodness, like. Toronto's never going to beat Buffalo again. Now, obviously, that's not true, but it just that game sticks out the most to me because that was absolutely like that game. It felt like they were just they don't have it tonight, right? Toronto's juiced up. They're tired of losing to Buffalo. They come out swinging, and then Buffalo found a way to beat them anyway. So that's the one that sticks out to me. That Toronto game on the road.
And before we wrap this up, one of my friends, and he's also a Bandits fan too. His name is Robbie Schneider. He's out of Buffalo, New York. He's got his own podcast show. It's his 30th birthday, and him and his sister will be at the Bandits game Friday as well. So I wanted to wish him a happy birthday, and go Bandits on Friday for Robbie and his sister.
Perfect. Happy birthday, Robbie. What a way to spend the birthday week in Banditland Friday.
Absolutely. Hey, Steve, I want to say thank you so much for coming on our show again, and hopefully we'll be able to have you back on during the NLL finals. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Sounds good to me, Chris. We can chat anytime. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Steve. Have a great night, and looking forward to the game Friday night against Vancouver at the KeyBank Center.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Steve. All right, guys, that concludes season 10, episode 35, overall 530 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph. And I'm going to show you some highlights from that Bandits San Diego game, courtesy of the National Lacrosse League's YouTube channel with the call, John Gerkler and Steve Bermel and this is courtesy of the NLL. Bandits won 5-4, and here's some highlights and some game calls.
Yeah, and I talked to him about how much experience the Bandits have, and he said they have to be careful not to be overconfident.
There's confidence there, and Ian McCabe, 1-0 Buffalo. Playoff game experience for Ian McKay, his 14th playoff goal. Freewheeled it right over to the Buffalo restraining line. In over the line comes Wesley Berg, 49 goals on the season. Save.
Referees can tend to let a little more go in the playoffs, but hard physical play.
Here's Hellier with a drive, straight in and out of the crease he goes. Courier is there, he's got some space to move. Govett trying to open things up for him, and Courier makes the shot. He scores! What a blistering shot by Zach Courier.
Tied up with him, and it gives Courier enough room to plant that right foot.
Wheeling it back over to Hellier. Hellier leaving it over to Berg on the dash. In front shot, score, San Diego.
Berg combined here for a quick two-man game, and Berg releases off the pick.
Now to the top of the slot, leading it back over to Buchanan. Buchanan back to Smith with a drive, scores!
Working out in front, Buchanan and Smith combined in a two-man game.
All down into the San Diego zone. Pressure is Burn with a drive. That's blocked by Rigliere. Score, rebound.
Leaning down, Braden Bradley down to the crease. Burn takes a contested shot, a jump shot.
Burn got a couple of shots and a rebound on his own. Here's an outlet pass for Buffalo in the break now for Nick Weeks. Weeks coming in strong, scores.
Himself alone with Chris Rigliere. And while taking a hit from behind, and the Buffalo assistant captain.
Trying to move quickly with under 5 left to play here in the half. Smith with a shot, rebound, jumps out in front, score.
It looks like there will be 1/10 of a second on the clock as that ball crosses the goal line. I'm sure they'll have quite a...
McIntosh with the ball from the top of the slot back over to Trey Leclerc, shooting it, scores.
He's able to pick his spot from right on top of the crease. Again, I believe our first goal of the second half.
York is there with the last-ditch effort for San Diego. Top of the slot is Rod Hellier. Near side, Courier with a shot, scores. Or did he?
Well, we're going to hold off here. The Seals getting up the floor quickly to score a goal to make it 5-4.
Bandits win it tonight, 5-4 over San Diego.
That clip was courtesy of the National Lacrosse League's YouTube channel. And that was John Steve Bermel with the game call. And the Buffalo Bandits are back in action this Friday night, Friday, May 2nd, 7:30, game 1 of the NLL semifinals between the red-hot Vancouver Warriors, Buffalo Bandits, best of 3. Game 2 will be Sunday, May 4th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 on the West Coast from Rogers Arena in Vancouver. And if there's a game 3 of this series between the Bandits and Warriors, which I believe will happen, will be on Saturday, May 10th at 7 o'clock. And if you want to go to this game Friday night at the KeyBank Center, I would suggest getting your tickets now. I'm guessing these games are going to be sold out, and hopefully they'll have a big crowd in Vancouver as well. But if you want tickets, check out their Buffalo Bandits website, bandits.com. And if you want to follow more about the National Lacrosse League, check out their website, NLL.com. Speaking of National Lacrosse League, I have a media personality and an NLL insider on my show tomorrow night. The next Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by Barry Condon, Tuesday, April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern with my special guest, Adam Levy. He has a host of his own podcast show, but he's also a National Lacrosse League media personality. So Adam's going to come on, and we're going to preview the Buffalo Vancouver series as well as the Halifax Saskatchewan series as well. So Bandits Warriors. Game 1 this Friday night, 7:30 at the KeyBank Center. The game will be on TSN, ESPN Plus, and NLL Plus, and you can listen to it in Buffalo on 1520 The Bet with John Gerkler, Steve Bermel, and Dave Buchanan as well. So check out Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show tomorrow night with Adam Levy, National Lacrosse League media person on podcast and knows the game of lacrosse, indoor lacrosse as well as anybody. And I want to say thank you to my guest tonight, Steve Bermel, the radio analyst for the Buffalo Bandits. He's a friend of the show, friend of myself, and I'm really looking forward to the next rounds, the NLL semifinals. Halifax, Saskatchewan, they open up as well. Saskatchewan has the home field advantage in that series, but due to some kind of scheduling conflict, the first game is going to be in Halifax this Friday night, and then games 2 and 3 of that series will be in Saskatchewan. And that series game 1 will be Friday night, I believe, or Saturday night, I believe. Yeah, Halifax, Saskatchewan will open up their series Saturday night in Halifax, and then games 2 and 3 will be in Saskatchewan on Saturday, May 10th, and if necessary, Sunday, May 11th. And as Steve was saying, it looks like the National Lacrosse League finals, the championship round, best of 3, will not start until Memorial Day in the United States as well. As we wrap up this show, guys, as you know, Barry Cullen Show on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. Right now, check out a 2025 Equinox LT all-wheel drive midnight edition, lease from $218 bi-weekly. That's like $109 weekly at 5.5% interest for 48 months with $3,900 down payment on an ultra-low kilometer lease. More details at barrycullen.com or more details at barrycullen.com or drop by Barry Cullen Chevrolet at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Automall, and thank you as well. You can check me out on Cameo. Yes, I am a part of the Cameo family. So go to cameo.com/Chris Palme, type in my name, Chris Palme, and book your Cameo today. I'd be happy to do a personalized video message for you. Birthday wishes, pep talks, talk about my radio and media career, whatever you want. Check me out on cameo.com, type in Chris Palme, and get your Cameo today. You can also follow me on Blue Sky Social, which is like what Twitter X used to be. Blue Sky Social at Live with CDP 19. If you're looking to adopt a pet, check out the Cambridge and District Humane Society, 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Telephone number 519-623-7722, extension 0. Or visit their website at cambridgehumanesociety.org. All the animals that are up for adoption, their profiles are on the website. And if you're looking to volunteer, like I do twice a week as a dog walker, you can fill out a volunteer application form through their website as well. And right now at the Cambridge District Humane Society, they are looking for cat litter, cat treats, dog treats, cat and dog food, pet food, towels, bedding, and whatever you can do, and cash donations. Every Wednesday at the Cambridge District Humane Society, they have a pet emergency fund in the Cambridge area that are struggling financially. So if you're able to donate some cat food, dog food, pet food, would be greatly appreciated. You can drop it off at the office at 1650 Dunbar Road, or if you can make a cash donation, either online or in person, that would be greatly appreciated. They do really great work at the Cambridge District Humane Society in finding our homeless furry friends forever homes and families. So please, if you're able to help out with a cash donation or dog, cat food, or right now they're looking for wet puppy food. If you have puppy food, that would be greatly appreciated as well. So Cambridge District Community Society, 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, Twitch, LinkedIn, and now available on Instagram. And fingers crossed one day, StreamYard will partner up with TikTok. You can also check out my website, beacons.ai/Chris D. Palme. All my content is on there as well. You can now follow me on TikTok at Chris Palme on my new page. And please consider following me and check out my content on TikTok at Chris Palme. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. If you're into webinars or podcasting or live streaming, check out StreamYard.com. They have basic free plans or paid professional plans that I'm on. Or if you're a business that does a lot of webinars or live streaming for your business, go to StreamYard.com and contact your sales department for pricing. And yours truly has been with StreamYard for years. I highly recommend them. Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. The audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, Tuned In, YouTube Music, and Good Pods. And please remember to hit subscribe and like as well. Finally, guys, you can email the show Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show at cpalme19@gmail.com. Any comments, questions, suggestions would be greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to tip the host because you like my talk show and my media work, I am on PayPal, cpalme19@gmail.com. If you'd like to PayPal me and support my talk show and radio show. And speaking of advertising, if you're a business out there and you're looking to advertise on my show, which has listeners in 44 countries around the world and 380,000 viewers on YouTube, you can email me at cpalme19@gmail.com. My prices are more than reasonable. And I'm looking forward to more sponsors for Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. Finally, guys, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, X. You can follow me on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky. I'm on everywhere. And also, I want to say thank you to my 590 YouTube subscribers and to my 380,000 viewers. So if you already haven't done it, please hit the subscribe and like notification. And to those who have already subscribed and have been supporting my show on YouTube, thank you so much. I really appreciate it as well. And before we wrap, just give me 1 second. Before we wrap up this show, guys, we've got NHL Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. We've got Tampa Bay at Florida. The Panthers are up 2-1 in that series. And the other game tonight is 9:30, Colorado, Dallas. That series is tied 2-2. And I think that series between Colorado and Dallas is going to go 7 games. And Tampa Bay, Florida, I would be surprised if that goes 6 or 7 games as well. And Major League Baseball tonight, the best team in the American League, the Detroit Tigers, 18-10, are on the road to take on the Houston Astros tonight. That game should be underway from Houston as well. Well, and the NBA playoffs in Miami tonight, and we also have Houston at Golden State. The Pistons return to action tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock at Madison Square Gardens. The Knicks, who stole last night's game literally against the Pistons, 94-93. But thanks to a great performance by Jaden Bronson, 32 points playing on a sprained ankle, the Knicks now are up 3-1 in that series. And the Pistons now have to win Game 5 in New York to force a Game 6 at Little Caesars Arena. So fingers crossed, and the Pistons can get another win in New York and at least extend the series to a 6th game, which would happen this Thursday night at 7 o'clock at Little Caesars Arena if the Pistons can do it tomorrow night against the Knicks. And in NLL finals again, guys, Vancouver Buffalo starts up Game 1 Friday night at 7:30, and the other one is Saskatchewan and Halifax. They start up Game 1, I believe, this Saturday night in Halifax, and Game 2 and 3 are in Saskatchewan. I'm predicting Buffalo NLL finals, but either one, all four of these teams, as Steve Bermel, my guest, was saying, are capable of winning the championship as well. And that is about it for tonight, guys. And again, my next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by BarryCullen.com, is going to be tomorrow, Tuesday, April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern, with my special guest, Adam Levy, a National Lacrosse League media personality and a podcast host. And we're going to talk more lacrosse with Adam as well. And before we wrap up the show, guys, for those people here in Canada who have not voted yet in the federal election for our next prime minister, please do so. I'm not getting to whose party you should vote for, but just please go and vote before it's too late. In the East Coast time, it is up to 9:30 tonight. So the Canadian federal election for the next prime minister, please make sure you do your vote, and you got until 9:30 Eastern time to get that vote in as well. And that is about it. Thank you to Steve Bermel from the Buffalo Bandits, who's an analyst, for coming on here tonight. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed and my audio platforms. I hope everybody has a great night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock with special guest Adam Levy talking more National Lacrosse League action. Good night, everybody.